top5rapwebsite.com. You already know what's going on. Today we got Teller Banks, the Grotesque and Beautiful. So this actually drops on October 11th, so be sure to head to Teller Banks' Bandcamp, description in the bio, so you can listen to this album just like I'm about to do right now. Track number 1, Suicide Hotline 3. Ed Glorious on the boards.
Turn it up. The walls gonna close on me. I can't really remember the last time I ain't feel lonely. Surrounded by people, surrounded by demons with evil intentions to be so related. I feel I'm related. My walls have been broken, my heart has been broken, my soul has been stolen and sold for a bargain. Trapped behind bars, I'm like this.
You know, so just off the top, first thing that grabs me, that delivery, that vocal inflection, you know, kind of that high pitch. I know I say a lot of people remind me of Kendrick. Kendrick is one of my favorite rappers, but yo, this voice, this flow, this kind of reminds me of a storytelling Kendrick. Let's keep it going.
I'm losing it all. I took a loss that cost it all. They put me on the cross and crossed me off. I'm volatile, I'm Molotov, I'm more than fire, I'm more than violent, suicidal, homicidal. Haunted by robbers and visions, my idols been murdered, my ideals missing, my moral compass been twisting in circles, dismissing lessons I should have learned, but I didn't. I ain't never been forgiven by nobody but.
So you know, he really putting them words together. He really rhyming flawlessly. Sounds like flawless rhyming. It sounds like it's not even tough for him.
I got secrets I ain't never told nobody, and and I might take him to the grave with me. Yeah, it seems like ain't nobody staying with me. Yeah, the common denominator more commonly I feel hated. I wish it.
And again, that Kendrick influence kind of reminded me of that Ain't Nobody Praying For Me. I forget what song. Which song was that? Ain't Nobody Praying For Me? It was on Damn though. Album Damn.
Some more patience for me, and I might take him to the grave with me. Yeah, it seems like ain't nobody staying with me. Yeah,
ain't nobody praying for me.
They see more demons than angels. I hope somebody been praying for me. Yeah, it feel like the world put chains on me. Niggas that I thought I knew best started to change on me. Black cloud over top my head started to rain on me. I'm raining on parading my pain for payment. A paradigm shifting now when I feel my thoughts rearranging. It's a sickness.
Okay, yeah. And I like this. This song is called Suicide Hotline 3, so he really spilling it all out. You know, when rappers talk about they struggle, often say they're rapping the blues. You know, because the blues, obviously, a sect of black music that's huge, and was huge, and still has, you know, branches off of that family tree of blues. You have so many different types of music. It's really the blues right here, and again, he's really just rapping. It's real easy for him to put words together.
Champion, Captain Manic, feeling like you ain't mad in seconds. Turn your seconds to hours, turn your powers to weakness. Might drown myself in the deep end. Really, all that keep me floating be the kids on the weekend. But lately, I've been feeling like I felt as a father, I felt as a partner, I felt as a brother, I felt as a son. I'm a terrible friend. I'm failing again, I'm falling again, I'm bothered again. I noticed that the higher I climb, the further I fall. But I'm still in the dark. Still ain't forgave myself, yet I ought to give it to God. I got scars that I ain't never showed nobody, and I take him to the grave with me. Yeah, it seems like ain't nobody staying with me. Yeah.
Okay.
The common denominator more commonly I feel hated. I wish you had some more patience for me, and I might take him to the grave with me. Yeah, it seems like ain't nobody staying with me. Yeah. The common denominator see more demons than angels. I hope somebody been praying for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I wasn't mad at that. That's a real dope song right there. Everything put together well. His rhyming, obviously, top notch in this song. I do get a heavy Kendrick influence, but you know, I said it when I first heard his voice, when I first heard his flow. Then I heard the hook, the Ain't Nobody Praying For Me hook. You know, ain't nobody staying with me is what he said though, but you know, that's a direct ode to the Ain't Nobody Praying For Me. I wish I could remember what song that was off of Damn where Kendrick said that. But very dope song. Track number 2, Exorcise 19. Well, it's gonna be interesting to see if he keeps this delivery, see if he keeps his voice, or if he switches it up.
At 19, I gave my cousin life away for what these pigs.
Turn that up.
Every day, yeah. At 19, they gave my cousin life away for what these pigs do every day, yeah.
He said at 19 they gave my cousin life for what these pigs do every day. You know, so I think they call that immunity. When the cops do it, they got immunity.
19, they gave my cousin life away for what these pigs do every day.
And again, that's one of the things with the Black Lives Matter thing, when people say, oh, well, all lives matter, or black people kill black people too. What about Chicago? It's like, yeah, bro. When a black guy kills another black guy, he gets prosecuted. Like, he gets taken care of. When the cops do it, nothing happens. If the cops were getting prosecuted and they were getting taken care of, you probably wouldn't have a Black Lives Matter. You know what I'm saying? Because, like, there's justice, you feel me? But that's just not the situation we're in.
At 19, they gave my cousin life away for what these pigs do every day. Hey, yeah, sometimes I catch myself, I be right in the middle of a laugh and flashback to the past, one blast back, one pass back, one crash, one cash sack, one last.
He said sometimes I'll be in the middle of a laugh and catch myself and then remember some traumatic shit. Like, I think they call that a symptom of PTSD. Like, you having a good time, but then you flash back to some bad shit that happened. Come on.
It's too fast, can't pass. Move back with your back. You knew that with your strap. Who that from the trap? The who that? Just trap those who that? I promise you one thing, my nigga don't do that. My nigga just move back. My nigga don't do that. My nigga don't make me do it. We making it, made it through. Whatever it takes to do it, I promise to make me do it, my nigga. I'll really do it, my nigga. That's all I ever really wanted. Somebody to make me prove it, my nigga. Somebody make it real, my nigga. I'm catching bodies for real. I caught a body for real. My nigga, I'm real. My nigga, I'm really real. My nigga, I'm really real. My nigga, I'm in the field. Yeah. At 19, they gave my cousin life away for what these pigs do.
You know, so he's still, I like that he's switching up his delivery. You know, because a lot of times when guys imitate Kendrick, I won't name any rappers, they stick with that old Kendrick voice and flow. But really, here his delivery is different and his flow's different, so he's showing some variety. So I do like that. I appreciate that.
Most niggas don't have to wait away to the bath. I had to carry the course and better way to your past. And wait to your past and wait away to your path. I think a lot about my path, like am I making niggas cry? Cause the chancellors are saying they be plotting on me now. Maybe not, but I'm prepared, they ain't gon' catch me laying down. All the folk that know me best, I look around, they ain't around. All the folk I love the most and turn around and left my side. I wanna grieve a loss with somebody who ain't died. I can't count many nights I lay awake at night and cry. Can't count many nights I had to piece into my dome. I see myself right in the eyes. Many times I type the text.
Suicide Hotline.
Feel like God just let me in. Just be myself and my pride. Just be myself and my pride.
Yeah, so he rap into the abyss, rap into the fading track, sing about me vibes. So yeah, I rate this album 3.5, 4 stars out of 5. This is very good to excellent. I am very pleasantly surprised by the Grotesque and Beautiful by Teller Banks. I mentioned earlier in the review that he kind of gives me Kendrick vibes, like on track number 1, Suicide Hotline 3, and on The Poetic. Flow-wise, vocal inflection-wise, and delivery-wise, those tracks, as well as a couple minor things here and there, it does remind me of Kendrick. But unlike many rappers, because there are a lot of rappers who imitate Kendrick. Kendrick was a huge thing when he came out. Unlike the rappers who normally imitate Kendrick, Teller Banks, with him, it doesn't feel like an entire bite job. It doesn't feel like he's trying to imitate Kendrick. And I think part of that is because Teller Banks gets so deep on this album, and he gives you so much of himself and who he is, his perspective. So even though you may have flows or deliveries that sound like a little bit like K-Dot, Teller Banks is giving so much of himself that it becomes obvious, like this is Teller Banks. You know, Suicide Hotline 3 gets really vulnerable. The Light, that kind of gives me You vibes. So you'll remember the track You on To Pimp a Butterfly, where it's just kind of just jazz in the background and Kendrick is saying his piece. I get some of that on The Wait. I get some of that on The Wait as well, and I'll just play some of that briefly. this is the way there's no drums, and he's really speaking real deeply, real vulnerably, to the point of almost tears on the track. You can hear his voice cracking, kind of like Kendrick on You.
I got this darkness inside of me. Demons behind my mind and my heart is so cold I can feel it inside of me. I've been at war with society. I've really been.
Yeah, so again, just even those bars. I got this darkness inside of me. I've been at war with society. Tyler Banks is giving you more so his own personal perspective and who he is. So, like I said, unlike the other rappers who imitate Kendrick, it doesn't feel like a full body job. You're getting enough raps. By the end of the album, you feel like you know who Tyler Banks is, and you feel like you know at least one of his perspectives. Now, on the way home, I like that song. I kind of get Isaiah Rashad vibes. Real groovy, and the way that Tyler Banks is able to stay in a pocket and form a pocket and really stick to that pocket, that flow pocket, the entire song is really an underrated skill. At no point does Tyler Banks sound like he's tripping over a flow. At no point does it sound like he's trying to force a rhyme. It all goes and flows very naturally for him. So let's play some of that. Y'all don't get Isaiah Rashad right there? So aside, and also I'll point out another song, Price of the Fallen. This is another very introspective song, but it's still groovy and melodic. So there are some songs on this project where Tyler Banks, the beat is grimy and what he's talking about is grimy, like on Piggy Pop, like on The Cycle. But on Pride of the Fallen, it's more Pride of the Fallen. I think I said Price earlier. I like how it's sequenced, and I'll talk about the sequencing in a minute. But he tries something that he didn't really try on the album before, at least that I heard, in terms of that singing, that passionate singing. I don't even want to call it singing because he's not like trying to hit notes or anything. But it's a break from the bars. And even on that song, The Way Home, you could hear him kind of singing on that hook. I had to say it before I could see it. That goes into speaking into existence, speaking things into existence. You gotta say it before you can see it. Now I do want to talk about the sequencing because I really like the sequencing on this project. For me, the first half, which is Suicide Hotline up until Piggy Pop or Clumsy, is very well executed, right? So even the first 2-3 songs, Suicide Hotline, Exorcise 19, dope. Apex Predator, I like that song. I like how Tyler Banks took how Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, they called us super predators. This is what they said to scare the public into allowing them to enact all these harsh laws that were enforced disproportionately on black people to fund the prison industrial complex. They called us super predators. But he takes that and says, we're apex predators. So the apex predator it's like a T-Rex, you know what I'm saying? That's like a grizzly bear, that's a shark in the sea. That's the top of the food chain. So I like how you flip that. So yeah, even the first 4 tracks, you get great execution, you get great flows, you get melody. It's not just rapping for the sake of rapping. And this is something I mentioned with Elzai on Elzai's project. Which I review, be sure to check that out if you haven't already. Sometimes Elzai just give you bars and every song is like the same flow, every song is like the same delivery. His main thing is I'm getting these lyrics off, you feel me? This is not like that. You're getting a lot of different styles in that first half of the album. And I like how it starts with those first 3-4 tracks, very strong. Now one part on the album that really stood out to me was Piggy Pop, where he's storytelling. Again, we're getting variety. Some songs we're getting vulnerability. Some songs we're getting him talking from his perspective and what he feels about himself, society. Piggy Pop, we get a story. Then after Piggy Pop, so this is about the midway point in the album, 15-song album. About midway through, then he hits you with Clumsy. Now Clumsy Piggy Pop, let's just play some of that. It's more slow, more dark, and it's a 5-minute song. So it could be easy, even though the subject matter is intense, it could be easy to find yourself lulled back after that song, or now the album is just background noise because you've been through 7-8 songs, and Piggy Pop's 5 minutes is more laid back. Even his voice is more just controlled and just really just talking to you. Then you get hit with Clumsy right after Piggy Pop. And Clumsy wakes you up with the flow, with the beat. So after Piggy Pop, you get Clumsy, and this wakes you right back up, gets you right back into the album. Oh yeah, you up now?
Yeah, I just be flexing my nigga. I was trying to check on a nigga. I just be checking a nigga. Niggas be settling, they be the devil, my nigga.
And it sounds like, I'm not sure what that is. Maybe Ed Glorious, shout to Ed Glorious on the boards. Maybe he can let me know. What does that sound? It sounds like, it sounds like a tape going into a tape deck, but it also sounds like a gun slide racking. And it happens every so often in the beat. Right there. It's like, what is happening? Like, you listen to this, like, what is happening in this beat? And then towards the end of the song, he respits his verse, but it's slowed down, and we hear some of that. You know, so it's a little experimentation on the album too, but for that to be placed where it is in the middle of the album after such a heavy song like Piggy Pop, I think that's great sequencing, because that wakes you, for me, that woke me up, and that was like, okay, I'm right back into this album. Also, The Cycle in Will and Testament. As I was listening to the end of this album, Will and Testament is the outro. The Cycle, for me, could have easily been a outro. That song has outro vibes. You know, you watch my channel, I talk about outro vibes. Certain beats just have that outro vibe. It's got that outro vibe. You know, so another song that I really like too. So sequencing, I can't knock anything about the sequencing. The album starts well. You get a song like Suicide Hotline 3. A lot of the times the intro be the best song on these guys' albums, but then you get Exorcise 19 after that, then you get Apex Predator, then you get The Way Home, then you get Paul Bearer, which has some bars that I like that I'm gonna point out in a minute. Well, actually, let's point them out right now. Then I'll get to, I guess, the cons, the few cons that I have about this album. So some of my favorite bars were on Paul Bearer. Shout out to Paul Bearer. Shout out to The Undertaker. What did he say? He had like this math punchline. Let me find that real quick. No drums, right here. So he said, "Understand my future, not the product of my past." So this is a math type of punchline, type of wordplay. He said, "Understand my future is not the product of my past." Meaning, regardless of what I did in my past, like, it's not dictating what I can do in the future. So he's talking to you in that way. But what's the answer to a multiplication problem called? It's called the product. Then he says the sum of all my parts. What's the answer to an addition problem? It's called the sum. Then he goes addition, subtraction, X, Y, Z. I'm gonna just let y'all hear. He said it better than I could. Hard ass left lane, so I'm a pass. Understand my future ain't no product of my past. The sum of all my parts is greater than they can add. I added and subtracted, did magic and mathematics, was rapping and shipping packages, Oh, okay. Yeah, so Paul Bearer had a couple lines I like actually, but also on the song Apex Predator, which I mentioned, he had this consciousness, continence, little scheme that he did. Let me see. They doctored our whole consciousness, ravaged and raped the continents. Doctored our whole consciousness, meaning people brainwash nowadays. They brainwashing us to believe X, Y, Z with what they putting in the media. They doctoring the consciousness. They ravid and rape the continents.
They doctor the whole consciousness, ravage and rape the continents, and treat this shit like it was a coincidence of consequence.
And treat it like it was a coincidence of consequence. Making you feel like you did something to deserve this. So, you know, the bars is clearly there. And there's one more bar I want to point out. So it won't testify, I just want to point out how, again, you may feel like he sounds like Kendrick or he sounds like Zay, but he's giving you so much of himself that you can't help but leave the album feeling like he did his own thing. And on Won't Testify, he had a bar about overdose, like thinking about overdose, and the intro is called Suicide Hotline. So he's really giving you himself. So yeah, overall great album, but you know, the one thing I will say as a con, I feel like the album could have been chopped down just a bit. Not because there are bad songs, but because on that first half, Suicide Hotline through Clumsy, Tyler Banks was accomplishing so much in terms of executing what he wants to say, clearly getting his viewpoints and his perspectives across. He was doing it so well that when you get to songs like The Wait and The Orphan are mainly the two I want to talk about. Even though I like The Wait.
My niggas get pension, I'm popping the witness, no drama with me.
Even though that's not a bad song, in The Orphan. Yes, The Orphan. So that, The Orphan, and The Wait. And maybe it's just because I feel like the no drums kind of throws off the flow of the album, but he had no drums on other songs in this album that I have no problem with. Paul Bear had no drums. I think just the mood of those songs being more dark, like The Orphan, to me this sounds like a Crime Apple song. This is like some Crime Apple will flow over, and this is like the flow Crime Apple will use. For me, it doesn't fit on this album. Even though the subject matter, the content may play into it, for me it does not fit. I feel like you can cut that one, and you can also cut The Wait, which is here. And then and also Appeals Freestyle. I'm not mad at Appeals Freestyle either. But it sounds mixed differently than the rest of the album. It doesn't sound as quality as the rest of the songs, or maybe that's just my ear. But I feel like you cut out, at the very least, The Orphan and The Wait, and have Pride of the Fallen go into the cycle, and Will and Testament as outros. Bro, like, that would be a very easily flowing, it will make sense in terms of how the album flows, and you can cut out two of kind of like almost vibe killers. I don't want to call The Orphan and The Wait, but it kind of interrupts what happens on Pride of the Fallen. This is Pride of the Fallen. You see? Then you go from that into this. So yeah, The Orphan and The Wait, I'll take those out. Have Pride of the Fallen go into the cycle, and I might even take Appeals Freestyle out, so Won't Testify could go into Pride of the Fallen. Here's Won't Testify. This one also has a little bit weird sounding on the mixing, but he gives you so much of himself in that song. That's an important song. But those are my only minor things. But I do feel like The Orphan and The Wait, for me, they stood out when I first listened to them. Not in a bad way, but in a way like, yo, he can cut these out, make it 13 songs, and have a more concise album that delivers the message, like that carries the message that he was delivering in that first half, is really carried through all the way through. The Orphan and The Wait, I feel like you can take those, and even Appeals Freestyle or Won't Testify, you can put those on a little EP, and then have the album just be a little bit more concise, you feel me? But yeah, overall, I am not mad at this. Like I said, I get this 3.5, 4 stars. It's very good, great project. For me to say it's excellent, I rarely give albums 4 and 5 stars, so I will really have to listen to it a lot more, but I did get my listens in. So yeah, be sure to support Teller Banks. Support him on Bandcamp when this drops on October 11th, 2020. I have the links in the description. I have his social media links so you can hit him up. And yeah, this is top5rapwebsite.com. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Peace.